Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jason from IA&B, and it's my pleasure today to spend some time with the 2022 IA&B Young Agent Award winners. We're gonna take some time to meet these individuals and ask them some questions and just get some insight into these very impressive 3 award winners for 2022. Before we do that, the usual administrative notes for any webinar that we conduct at IA&B. First, this is being recorded so that others can see it at a later date, but we appreciate those of you that are here live and participating in the webinar. Participants are muted for this event, but we are asking for feedback via the chat feature. We are looking for questions from the audience, which we will address towards the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions, please submit them via the chat feature. Any comments, anything else, please go ahead and just submit via chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the next 45 minutes. As I mentioned, today's webinar is about recognizing the Young Agent Award winners, something that IA&B is very proud to be doing and something we look forward to every year. This is the 3rd year for this program, part of the bigger program of embracing youth in the industry, promoting the future of this industry, and that is IA&B's Futures program. But again, the 3rd year of the Young Agent Awards, and we'll get more into that later. These would not be possible without the company sponsors. We rely on them. We have received quite a bit of traction and publicity on this program from the carriers. We're fighting the same battle here. We're all looking for youth in the industry, perpetuation of this industry, and we want to thank our sponsors. So I will note them. First, BBSI, Donegal, MMG, Narragansett Bay, Penn National, Progressive, Selective, and Travelers. These carriers are very important sponsors of this program. Without their support, we would not be able to do this. So we want to thank them and thank them for their support throughout the year. So let's review what it takes to be an IA&B Young Agent Award winner. This has become competitive. As I mentioned, this is our 3rd year and we're seeing increased submissions and we're seeing increased competition for it. So first and foremost, it must be an individual employed by an IA&B member agency. And it must be an individual licensed as a P&C agent. So a licensed individual with an IA&B member agency. Based on the fact that this is a futures program, younger agents program, 40 years or younger is the criteria for the Young Agent of the Year award winner. They must contribute to the community. So we look in the applications for somebody who is contributing not just within the insurance industry, but in their community as a whole. That's a pillar of independent insurance agents and what makes us unique. So we're looking for that. They must show some examples of an emerging leader, somebody who's up and coming within the industry, within the agency. So we're looking for that. And then something near and dear to us at IA&B, they participate in IA&B events. There's several things that IA&B does. I'll be talking about those in a little bit. So we're looking for individuals who are engaged with IA&B and participating in those events. So that is the criteria. And that is what we look for, and the award winners are those individuals who really separate themselves from the group. And I think you'll see that today when we introduce you to the 3 award winners. Because this has become more competitive and this has become a bigger program, we have created for the first time this year a category called movers and shakers. So individuals that we certainly want to recognize, just short of being the award winners this year, but certainly are worthy of recognition. So I want to take time to recognize these individuals again. And the first time that we've recognized it, but this will become a tradition years moving forward, movers and shakers. So those individuals are Chaz Timmons from PDM Insurance Agency, Katie Vang from Unruh Insurance Agency, Jill Nye from Gunn Mowry, Shane McIntosh, JPI Insurance Associates, Catherine Marr from Fry Insurance Associates, Inc., and finally, Jeffrey Benson from Prominent Insurance. So those are our movers and shakers for 2022. Congratulations to them, and we look for more from that group, and we look forward to their engagement. So that being said, let me officially introduce you to the award winners for 2022. I'll start in Pennsylvania. Dave Ravel. Dave, wave your hand, please. Dave is a partner with Element Risk Management in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So our award winner in Pennsylvania for 2022, Dave Ravel. Jennifer McClure, please raise your hand, Jennifer. Client Relationship Manager with Diversified Insurance Industries in Hunt Valley, Maryland. And finally, Kyle Brazier from Bethany Beach, Delaware. He is a commercial lines manager producer with Wilgus and Associates in Bethany Beach, Delaware. So our 3 award winners for Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. Let me congratulate you guys. And as I said, the competition was fierce this year. And the fact that you guys are officially the award winners, kudos to you. It was an impressive group that we had this year. And my congratulations to you, and a very impressive slate of winners this year for IA&B. We're in good hands over the next year with you 3. The point of today is a casual conversation. We want to get to know you guys a little bit more. We want to shed some light on what it takes to become an award winner. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you guys are stewards of the Young Agent program for IA&B over the next year. So we want to use you and get some feedback from you and learn from you guys. So that's what we hope to do here. But we have some prepared questions. I'm going to moderate some questions of you guys. We're going to see if some chat questions come in from the live audience. But let me start just with the general one, your story. How did you get your start in this industry? How did your career progress to where it is, to the point that you're now an award winner? You're being recognized as one of the best and brightest in your state as a young agent. And perhaps what are some highlights in your career? So we always talk about you either fall into this industry or you're born into this industry. So we're curious to see if that's the case. So I'm going to go in some random order. I'll take it the order of the announcement first. Dave, I'm going to start with you. How did you get started in this industry? How did you progress to this point? And maybe a highlight or two.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came into the industry through a marketing position with a carrier. And for me, kind of like you say, born into it or fall into it, my dad was in the business with another carrier, but we never, ever talked about it growing up. When I told him I was flying out to Chicago to take an interview with an insurance carrier, his jaw hit the floor kind of thing, because it wasn't a lineage thing or anything like that. But I was open to it when I got that. I got a call from a recruiter, but I was open to that call, I think, because of that. I knew a little bit about it. I knew what insurance was anyway. But then from there, from being on the marketing side, the best thing about that was I got to see a lot of different agencies, how they operate, who they are, who they were in their community. And it was very attractive. And then also I met a lot of agency owners, producers, account executives, and just people from across the agency. And all of them were so willing to share their experience and tell me about how they kind of grew up in the business and all that kind of stuff. So it was just a very welcoming industry. And, being around those folks who were so knowledgeable about it and having them be so open arms about it, willing to share and willing to lean in with me over the years, that kind of thing. It was very attractive. So it just kind of like one thing always led to the next, but then seeing all those different agencies and how they operate, there was a feeling of sitting on the wrong side of the desk during those meetings. I wanted to be in the agency, as a part of my community and that kind of thing, as opposed to traveling so much and being everywhere all the time kind of thing. So when I think about a professional highlight along the way, there's several, but I always think about the people side of it. And I mentioned this when we were talking about, the video about all this, but just kind of one of the first larger agencies I ever worked with was McIntyre Insurance out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And just to see the level that you could do this business at. That was a highlight for me. And some of the folks there, one of them is a mentor to me today, but some of the folks there really leaned in with me and kind of showed me how they do business and what a day in their life looks like. And that was really the beginning of, for me, really leaning in on wanting to get to the agency side of the business. And that's where we then started Element Risk from. So
good. That's a perfect segue. We'll talk about mentorship in a second. So I'm curious what made that a good mentorship. So hold that thought. But real quickly, Dave, can you just talk about progression too? So you went to Chicago, got licensed, explain where you're at now, what your role is, and how quickly that progression happened, if you don't mind.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about insurance is I do think it's an industry that you really do get out what you put in. And so when you think about progression, yes, I got in through on the carrier side, but then was able to get licensed and begin pursuing a CIC. So I have my CIC and my CRM, and then from the agency side, I mean, we started from scratch. So when you think about progression, like there was my basement, and then there was a little 400 square foot office and things like that. But just when you start that way, you really get to do all things, issuing certificates, doing personal lines quotes, everything like that. But then I do think it's important as you progress to kind of find the things that you naturally enjoy. And lean in a little bit more with, like, the things I do today for our company. I always kind of joke about, like, I would do them for free. It's like breathing to me. I love it. So I think as you progress, it's really important to kind of keep your ear to like your own ground and kind of just like, what am I really enjoying in this? I really love being face to face with clients, or I really love processing, the details to make sure everything is perfect and lined up, as we go. I think that's important. And that was something that as progression came, I tried to progress in a direction that made sense for me and my wiring. So, and now we kind of really talk about that as a company, because now I get to work with other people who are on that same journey. And so that's something we talk about a lot. Yes, it's important to progress, but it's also important to progress in a direction.
And with purpose. I think that's key. And we'll talk about that as well, because it's a common ask of agencies is, I need to get somebody and put them on a path towards leadership, similar to what you three are showing, but how to do that. So easier said than done sometimes. Jennifer, your turn. How did you get started in the industry? How did your career progress to the role that you're in? And what's some of the highlights over that time period?
So I answered an ad in the newspaper for a receptionist position at an independent insurance agency. It was right out of high school. So I had no idea where that position would take me. So I was a receptionist for a few months, and then I was offered a position as an assistant, serving like a niche book of business, which was interesting because it was doctors and then home builders. So
how long from receptionist to now handling a niche?
So it was just a few months.
Yeah.
Okay. It was about maybe 2 or 3 months. And then I just kind of moved into the assistant role, learned the processes of, how to renew an account, the 120-day timeline, which you all are probably learning about. And I just started to drill down into the coverages. With that niche book of business, I was learning about professional liability. And then when I worked on the home builders, I was learning about builder's risk. So those were two sort of like specialty coverages. Everything else was your normal liability, property, auto, work comp kind of stuff. And then I'd say probably two years later, I was promoted to an account manager, but in between that time, I had obtained my ACSR designation. So I was building up my knowledge. And then I started handling a general book. I still had some of my prior accounts for the doctors and smaller contractors, but then I started handling just a variety of clients and learning about the different coverages. And I'm going to say I probably stayed in that role for just a couple of years, maybe another 2 years. And then I was approached by one particular producer who said, I want you to handle my entire book of business. And I was a little nervous because I knew he had larger accounts. I'm like, he's got like $1 million accounts, statement of values, things that I've never handled before. But I will talk about him a little bit more in the mentorship because he played a key role in my success. So, and I've been doing large accounts now for, I want to say 13 years. So that kind of talks about my progression in the insurance industry and sort of where I am today. But furthermore, I've now taken on a leadership role. So with handling larger accounts and helping sort of mentor others that work with me on my team, I've been, offered a leadership role to help sort of bring along processes and help train others as well that are newer in the insurance industry, which is really one of the highlights of what I get to do. But one of the other highlights of my career has been my CIC designation, because there was a lot of effort and dedication required to obtain that. So I remember when I passed my final exam, it was like a relief, because I felt like I had been doing this like 2 years, like every couple of months. I'm going to these, 2.5 day, I think it was crash courses is what I want to call it. And then I'm up in my room, studying all night so that I can pass the exam the next morning. And there's about like 5 of those that you have to do. So I just remember feeling that sense of relief. And then there was this sense of accomplishment. And one thing to know about the CIC designation is that it's really about professional growth. And in order to keep your designation, you have to attend specific update classes every year. I mean, the good thing with that is that those updates will also count towards your CE credits to keep your license. But CIC for sure is definitely a highlight for me.
Well, we appreciate that plug. As a CIC provider, we feel it is a differentiator for anybody in industry, and continue to feel that it really promotes professionalism in our industry. So I appreciate you saying that. And we're going to touch on mentorship, like I said, in a second. So I'm glad that so far 2 for 2, mentorship has been noted as a key reason as to why you guys are where you're at today. So again, hold that thought as well. Kyle, your term. And we're also 2 for 2 on 2 individuals that really no specific training or in insurance, came into the industry a little blind, if you will, but quickly, and that's why we're asking the question about progression, quickly learned the ropes and really became diversified in their skill sets and quickly moved into very important roles within the agency. But Kyle, let's talk about you. How'd you get into it? Highlights and progression, please.
All right. So I definitely fell into the insurance world. So from period of 2006 to 2009, I was in the used car. I was selling cars for a dealer here in Delaware. And it got to a point that I didn't want to work 80 hours anymore. So I ended up meeting a family member passed away, and I ended up meeting my current boss at the funeral and asked if he was hiring, and he said yes. So I went in, did an interview, and he's like, give me an Omnia profile test. He said, you know what, you make a good producer. Let's, get licensed and I'll bring you on board. So I went and met with him on my days off while I was still selling cars. And eventually I quit the car business, took the exam, passed it first go around, and walked into his door and said, let's go. And he said, all right, I'm going to ship you off to Hartford School of Insurance. And he sent me out there for 3 weeks. And that was pretty much, that was the crash course in insurance. I literally, other than studying the license material, I knew nothing about insurance, like workers' comp. What's that? Other than buying your own auto, personal auto insurance. So it was like a whole nother world. And, so needless to say, I passed through that, probably about, I started off from scratch as a producer. So, it was friends, family, cold calling, what came in through the door, rounding out accounts was a lot of my first 2 years. And at that point, I kind of got the gist of it and saw what can come from it. So I started enrolling in the CIC classes, like Jennifer said, and that was, taking those in the spring, in the fall, in the spring, in the fall, until I finally completed that in 2014. And that was probably one of the a really turning point in my career that made me say, you know what, this is not a job anymore. This is my career path. I'm going to take it and I'm going to make something out of it. At that point, I just had my first child. So as you can imagine, the bills coming in for daycare and everything like that, you really pressure yourself when you see those come in and you're like, oh, okay, we got to call more people. And using the CIC, the knowledge you get from that really differentiates yourself from other agents. And it may have written the account for years, but we're doing something incorrect, or, could see a different way or method of handling the account that's helped me there. So take me up to about 2018. I've been here, so 7 years at that point. And you decide to take, David, we talked about management role at this point, to kind of try to revamp some things and do things just slightly different, a little more customer centric, really feeding on the things that I'd used in the past few years to gain accounts and try to implement at all accounts, and take it from there. And now here we are, 2022, probably one of the best years ever last year. So can't complain. And now I'm following Dave's footsteps and starting the CRM, which is definitely interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Love the CRM.
And
No,
yeah,
that's
and now I'm here.
Yeah. Well, good stories, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems to me that you get licensed. I mean, that's obviously the first goal, but your training for how you've gotten to where you are is on the job training. I mean, not necessarily something you're going to learn books or any specific course. It's get licensed, get into this industry, and embrace it. It sounds like that's what I'm hearing from all three of you guys is the agency is going to train you, and you're going to learn the ropes that way. There's not necessarily some specialty that's going to make you a good insurance producer one way or the other. Agreed?
I totally agree with that.
Right.
We always talk about like, I don't know if you remember, like with cars without power steering, like if it doesn't have power steering, you try and turn, you're like, ugh. But if you're moving, you can turn. Like, that's always been our thing here. Like, we need to see that you're trying to move forward too. And then we can do so much more when you're moving forward than just like,
Yeah.
well, what do I do next? Hey, what do I do next? That kind of thing.
I like that analogy. That's a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Plus-
I'll have to use that.
Plus your knowledge, the knowledge you gain from those courses, the rubles and everything. I mean, it makes it so much easier to explain to a client the need of the need of the insurance and what those things do, rather than just charging them money. Oh, you're just charging me money for it. They kind of understand where that's coming from, and you're able to explain it in an easier way than if you didn't know.
Well, let's talk mentorship. I'm anxious to get to this one because at IA&B we believe wholeheartedly that proper mentorship is needed to guide somebody through this industry. I don't think it's a coincidence that all three of you noted in your opening story that a mentor played a big part in getting you there. So I want to touch on this and just make sure the importance of this gets out there, but also feedback on what makes a good mentor. So we're going to reverse it here. Kyle, we'll start with you. You mentioned that mentorship, but what is it? Not necessarily, you explain, what was done in that mentorship you had, but what was it that made it good? What was the role of that mentorship over the last 10 years to get you to where you are here?
I really say just more along the lines of having someone to talk to about certain things in regarding accounts, coverage, where you want to go, and just being someone that can listen, and maybe not have to say anything, but someone to vent to at times. You get something account that throws you awry and you get all ticked off and then realize it's really nothing personal, but being able to vent that out and have somebody to say, it's not a big deal, let's go write another one. So that's.
Okay. No, good. Jennifer, your side, the mentorship aspect and why it was important. What was it that was so good about that?
So it was really learning the process and learning how to develop relationships, developing relationships with your underwriters and your brokers, and then developing relationships with clients. So I got to start out the process with analyzing the information, whether or not it was right, if it was writing a piece of new business, or it was just renewing a policy, analyzing all the information and then negotiating the coverage and negotiating the premiums with the underwriters, and then being able to sort of sell that to the client. That was all a key role for me. And I sort of had someone guiding me along the way. You know, we would get a quote in and I would get everything teed up and think, okay, we're going to present this to the client. And then my mentor would come back and go, okay, no, that's not good enough. We're going to have to go back. So we just kind of reworked things. And that has really helped me with the role that I have today, just with the larger accounts and negotiating things up front. And then that way, everything is all ready for the producer to present, or if I'm presenting it to the client as well. It really helped me with my confidence to feel more comfortable. Like I know what I'm doing here. This is the right thing. And I'm presenting this to the client, and I know that I've done it to the best of my ability. And he, you know, my mentor definitely was a big motivator for me to get my CIC. He had a CIC, and he knew that really just furthering my education was going to help me. And he really, he just wanted me to succeed. So, and I knew he was actually working on his CRM at the same time. So knowledge and education was definitely a big player in what he did and the services that he could offer his clients. And he really taught me about value-added service as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But, you know, when it comes to like cultivating relationships, I would say for mentors, when you have a newer teammate that's just learning insurance, be approachable. Let them know that it's okay to ask questions. Give them positive feedback and make them feel valued, because people who are valued will always do more. And then for mentees, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Mistakes are going to happen, so use them as learning opportunities. I mean, ask, you know, yourself and your mentor, how can I do things better the next time?
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Great points there. Dave, you very specifically mentioned an individual and how important he was in where you are, qualities, or what specifically about that has been so resonating for you as you bring it up continually.
Yeah, I think the power of a mentor is somebody that's like just further down the road than you are. They like see through different eyes. They, you know, like Jennifer, you kind of mentioned it, you know, it was large accounts and I wasn't sure about it, but that person was looking at you going, you can do this. You absolutely have this, you know? And so it's almost like a trainer in a gym spotting you. You can, if they're there, yeah, okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to go for that kind of thing. So I think the power of a mentor is unbelievable, but I think at its simplest form, it's somebody saying, you matter, I care about you, and I got your back, you know? And it's, that makes you want to rally, you know, for yourself, but also kind of for that person too. It like creates this accountability. Like if they're taking the time to lean in with me, I want to make it worth their time and show them that they weren't wrong in thinking that I could do it, kind of thing, you know? And so it creates this like great relationship there. But I also think too, one of the things we talk about a lot internally with mentorship is for anybody anywhere in their career, I think it's important. We kind of talk about like 3 levels of it. One is to have a mentor that's like further along than you are, and somebody that you kind of aspire to be, or to, you know, maybe it's in the position or in how they operate in field or something like that. But I also think it's really important to have a peer mentor, somebody else who's at a similar place in their career, but yet you can tell they're pushing in the same direction that you are. And it's just like that whole like iron sharpens iron, you know, that kind of thing. Like you are working hard together. But I also think too, is that anybody can be a mentor. So even if you're brand new in this business, you could mentor somebody who's currently on a different career path, thinking about insurance because they've seen certain things or something like that. Like, I just think there's always like 3 sides to that. Is like, if you're building out, I think mentorship should be very strategic and very purposeful. I think sometimes several of us were lucky enough to kind of have it happen. But I think, yeah, it should be like, who is my mentor that I'm striving towards? Who is somebody that I'm refining with and we're kind of together? And then who is somebody that I'm helping out with and leaning in on because these other people are doing that with me. And we've been trying to put things in place around that. But the person that I mention all the time, it's just you're kind of getting like a behind the scenes look at how they do life and and you're invited into that. I think that's what a mentor is. It's this a person who they kind of pursue the mentee to some degree, and then the mentee is trying to live up to thank you for caring enough to lean in with me in my career, that kind of thing. So it creates a very unique relationship.
I like that point about, we always think of a mentor as somebody more progressed, older in the industry, has the years of experience, but this peer level, that's a very interesting concept. We believe at IA&B that this Futures program provides that. It's a group of individuals somewhere in the similar career path, maybe a different position, but and that's where having a group of like-minded individuals is helpful. So that's a great point, Dave, that just having somebody that you can commiserate with at times and talk about. So that peer-to-peer mentor is a nice concept, and I appreciate you saying that. So
yeah.
All right. This is one I like because, as I mentioned, this is being recorded. I mentioned that you guys are stewards of the industry for IA&B now. We're going to rely heavily on you guys to be stewards of getting young people into this industry and promoting the industry. So that being said, and Jennifer, we're going to start with you on this one. What would you tell young agents just starting out, or maybe even outside of that, individuals that don't necessarily look at the independent insurance agency career as a career path, but maybe twofold, those that are just starting in the industry or somebody who may be considering this as a career path? What advice do you have for them? And related to that, what was some professional advice that you received in the beginning that really stuck with you? But what would you tell somebody just getting started or considering this industry? How can they be successful in this industry?
So, my advice would be willing and eager to learn and take on new tasks. When you show interest, you will catch the attention of others, like a possible mentor. They'll take you under their wing because they're going to see that you're putting in this extra effort. You seem to be engaged. The professional advice that I would have is always do more and go the extra mile. And that's what I call the value-added service that I was talking about just a little bit earlier, that my mentor really showed me. And I'll just give you a quick example. So I had a client recently that had reached out because they forgot to return their tags on their vehicle to the MVA, and they received a fine. Well, they did sell their vehicle, so they didn't have it in their possession. But we were trying to think of different options that we might have. And it turned out that the fines that this client had would have equaled the same amount of premium that they would have paid to backdate coverage, even if that was an option. So I thought, okay, well, that doesn't really bode well for them. What else can we do? So our team contacted the MBA, realized that they could sign this affidavit essentially to waive the fines by providing a copy of the bill of sale. And at that point, we had everything that the client needed in order to get their fines waived. We could have easily said, why don't you call the MBA and see if there's anything else you can do? But instead, we kind of did that legwork. And that's what I'm calling the value-added service. That's how you're going to set yourself apart from the competition. That could be the competition of another broker that you're competing against, another agent. But that can also be you as a professional setting yourself apart from your peers, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good advice. Kyle, advice to somebody just starting the industry or considering it. How do they get to where you three are sitting right now?
I would say somebody just starting out, maybe they went ahead and got their license, found interest in the business and say, I'm going to go be an agent. It looks like a good job. I can work 8:30 to 5. I would say the best thing to do is just stick with it. Really, even a young producer, you probably don't even till you're like 3 to 5 years in, even grasp what you're doing, I would say at this point. So really just sticking through it and see it to the end. I mean, I like to tell everybody it's a turtle race because it really is. I mean, you might not start off myself when I started off first year, how much I made. And I was like, whew, I guess this is a good choice. And then the second year I was like, okay, you got a little bit from last year. Now we got some from this year. And then third year I was like, okay, I'm starting to figure it out. And then, as it compounds on from there, you really can see like, if I do this every year for 10 years from now, I'm going to be doing okay. I'll be having a little bit more.
I appreciate turtle race. I get that, but there's not too many industries where in 10 years you can go from just passing the licensing test and getting licensed to being where you're at. And, you guys are certainly being recognized for doing it right, doing it well, but there's a lot of young professionals out there that have come into this industry and very quickly have gotten to the point they are. So I hear what you're saying. It's a turtle race maybe on the front end, but this industry presents some really good growth opportunity. And in fact, all three of you in 10 years have gotten to where you are is a testament to that there. Mm-hmm. So I hear what you're saying, Kyle, and I agree completely. It's just, we also have to be able to say the potential was certainly there.
Yeah. I just, because a lot of times, your second year, you probably question yourself whether you like this business or not, but really, I don't think the fruits of it really don't happen until you're probably, I would say 5 years. I would say the fruits of it for me were probably at the 5-year mark where I was like, okay, let's, CIC, let's take it that next step. So I really just stay sticking through it, like learning, like Jennifer said, taking as many classes as you can, find a mentor, and just see if you like it. Okay.
All right, Dave, advice?
For me, my advice would be it's kind of two-folded and they could seem opposite, but my advice would be take time to plan and define your career, like the direction you're trying to go. And that's something I remember from being in the field. Some agencies, the producers were like kings of the agency, and other places it was the account managers, and other places it was executives and all these different things. But I think it's really important for people to say, what do I want to pursue, and what fits my wiring and things like that. And I think about, like, Kyle's background actually made me think of this, but like, if you're off a little bit in the beginning, like 200-300 yards down the fairway, you're way out in left field. So like, you kind of got to know where you're heading and kind of keep checking back to that, as your career is progressing, because if you're good, people are going to pull you in different directions. Like, hey, come over here, work on my book. Hey, you should be a producer. Oh, I don't want to be a producer, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important to kind of know where you're heading would be one. But then the second piece of advice I would say, which could seem counter that, is today, just focus on what you're doing and be really good at your job. Like those people who are getting it done today get the opportunities tomorrow, And so while there can be great speed at which you accelerate through your career, and all those things are true, you're going to do that by doing what you do today really well. And those around you are going to see that. And they're going to say, they're doing that well, let's give them this opportunity. They're doing that well now, let's go over here. Let's, that kind of thing. So those two things combined, because that is going to pull you around if people see you doing well, knowing where you want to head and staying as close as you can towards that, heading in that direction, but then being just like really faithful with the job you have today and doing that well. I think those two things combined, you end up 10, 15 years into your career, loving what you do and being really good at it, which kind of continues to perpetuate the success you're probably already having.
Yep. You said it earlier, progress with a purpose.
Yes.
Too often we see just progress and just leave it at that. We want progression, but without that purpose, without that plan, it can go wayward. So I'll talk about, you mentioned the background before we started. I love the analogy. That's 17 TPC Sawgrass, a short hole, but one of the hardest holes in golf. Well, why did you put it up there? I love this story.
So mainly for, to think about it as if someone just to start it off. I mean, how many balls would you hit and actually hit on the green your first year, and then the second year you got up there, and then the third year, and it's as you progress in your career, you're going to hit more balls on the green, you're going to get closer to the tee, or you're going to get closer to the hole as you go on. So it's kind of as you learn more, you're going to you're not going to hit as many in the water, and you're going to hit there and get a closer attempt to making par, hopefully, or even hole in one. You never know. So it's kind of
yeah. Hey, I envision a futures conference at TPC Sawgrass. We can all play play
Right.
17. And let's see where the progress is. So,
Sign me
all
up.
right, perpetuation. We talked about it, and I think it relates to advice. But one of the reasons I'm asking this question is majority of IA&B members would give their right arm to hire somebody like you, somebody that wants to come into this industry and the ability to learn and the hunger to learn and grow. We constantly hear from our membership is we're looking for that good talent. So I guess think about it in those terms. What advice do you have for IA&B member agencies that are looking to hire a clone of you guys 10 years ago? What is it that allows for that? And then perpetuation, what are your thoughts on just in general perpetuating this industry and attracting talent into it? How do we collectively perpetuate this industry? What story do we tell to get more people in as independent insurance agents? So back to you, Dave, quickly, how do we perpetuate this industry?
Well, that's a big question. So I would say on the talent side first, before the industry side, but the talent side, I think about, like, you hear a lot of people kind of make the joke of I was handed a phone book and they said good luck kind of thing. I think those days are over. So I think that responsibility falls back on us as agents to actually think and look in the mirror. What do we offer somebody new coming in to this industry? How can we help them grow personally, professionally, things like that? That I think is my short answer to that. Is I think we as an industry need to take responsibility for it and know what other industries are doing to attract talent and keep up. I just think the days of, finding somebody and hoping they work out, that kind of thing are pretty much over. So I think that relies on us and continuing to do stuff like this together to learn from each other. I think the more we do that, the better off we are always. So for talent, I also think we need to look for people in different places, and that's something I was always encouraged to do. If you were out to a restaurant and somebody you could tell they were very personable, phenomenal with the level of customer service in that environment that they were offering, that might be somebody who is, looking for a career change and might be a great fit, things like that. So that's what I think about on the talent side. On the agency side, I think a fear of mine, honestly, is like what's, just there's financial powers at play, if you will, that are not insurance people that are really making waves in our industry. And that's, in some ways it's good because it makes us all have to kind of catch up to that. But I think that getting people in is the answer to perpetuating our industry, because if we have good teams in place, like one of my friends' agencies, they have a mandatory retirement at 65 years old because they're so committed to perpetuation, internal perpetuation, that they have it like a conveyor belt, for lack of a better word. They have a very strong process for bringing people in. They have a very strong process for building people up. And then from there, doing their job into management. And it's happening for them. It's not this wild, unsolvable equation for them, because they're so purposeful about it that they're in a great spot. And it's really encouraging to watch how they operate. And it's neat for the team. And then to know that somebody mandatorily is out of senior level management at 65 creates that constant opportunity for everyone else. And they're working hard to fill and to be ready when their number's called, if you will,
Yep.
So I think it's an intentionality.
Yep. And I made it a point earlier to note that the three of you didn't come into your positions experienced, trained, a 4-year degree in risk management, and you made a good point, Dave, that there's individuals out there, restaurant. I can't tell you how many times I've heard our members have made good hires from a restaurant because somebody has the right personality. And to me, that's as important. You can train them, get somebody in, mentor them. We talked about that here, train them. There's training opportunities, but it's a personality and desire, I think, is as important as anything for who will get success in this industry. So I'm glad
Jason, can I share one thing on that?
Yeah, please.
A practical thing that we did that has made probably the biggest impact for us is we had job openings out there, and they had, licensed mandatory, it would be one every 4 months kind of opportunities coming in. We created a position called company support coordinator. And basically it was, if you're an account manager, you're serving our clients. A company support coordinator, you're serving the internal team. So you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be licensed. And that license requirement was not on that job opening.
Yep.
within 2 weeks, like 27 applicants.
Wide open.
So
Mhm.
wide open. So I think you need to be willing to say, okay, we will grow our own, but then in some ways that's part of what creates the fabric of a team too.
Sure.
When someone came in unlicensed and you taught them that and their teammates taught them that, it kind of becomes this good self-fulfilling cycle as opposed to, the other option.
Excellent advice. Kyle, perpetuation, your thoughts on what can we do?
So I'll go talk a little bit about the talent part first. I would say there's probably a good age demographic of probably people that are in their late 20s to mid 30s that, perhaps they either didn't graduate college and are now in a career, maybe in hospitality or something, and are looking for something a little more meaning. That, they have great customer service skills. They know a lot of people. They can be friendly. They just don't know about that insurance is an option for them. Much like myself. So, and you can really make a career out of it, without a college, like you just said, without a 4-year degree in risk management. I mean, you can learn on the job training. And then also to go on Dave's part, when you bring someone in of that nature, giving them a phone book and sending them on their way is probably not going to work anymore. There's a lot of other sales opportunities that someone could go do where they would get a client list and have a lot of that legwork done for them so they can focus on making the sale and making some money for themselves. So I would say looking in that area. As far as perpetuation, I mean, it's a job you can do forever. I know that kind of sounds silly. So a lot of people are older in the business, but there'll be room for more people to come in and grow with agencies or buy out the current agencies. Not necessarily have to be bought out by some big conglomerate or private equity firm that's going to buy up smaller agencies. There's options internally for that to happen. So hopefully that continues on and we don't have 3 agencies running everything.
It's a stable industry, no doubt. I mean, that's one plus is people will always need insurance and there will always need to be somebody to sell that insurance. So stability of this is, and we've seen it the last couple of years through the pandemic, the stability. So that is a good point that it is stable. Jennifer, your attempt to solve the perpetuation problem?
Well, first, I just wanted to kind of quickly comment on what Dave and Kyle mentioned about looking for talent, outside of the insurance industry, essentially. My company actually had these cards made up that said you're the missing piece and would give them out to all of the employees so that if you were out at a restaurant and you saw someone that was really going above and beyond and thought, you know what, I think maybe you might, it was really nice to be able to kind of hand out that card and say, why don't you reach out to us, kind of thing. So I think that that's a great idea. The other thing is more of like a personal share. When I was in high school, I was part of this program. It's called the Academy of Business and Finance. And so we had these shadow days. And I know a lot of companies are going to the college and career fairs, but I think there might be an element out there where we've got a lot of young people that don't exactly know what they want to do. And sometimes they say, I just want to take a year off from school before I start college. And I just think that if maybe we go in a little bit earlier to a high school that might have a special program for business, finance, things of that nature, you can offer them a shadow day. And then if things go well, then you offer them a paid summer internship. I mean, that's what I had. And it kind of just got the foot in the door to, you could see the office environment and that sort of thing. But I think once we bring these people in that are newer and green, the training is the key. So it's not just the processes and the procedures, but the knowledge piece too, which is where that mentorship really comes into play. A lot of times our team members are just processing things, documents, certificates, endorsements, but they don't really know the why. And that's where the mentor comes in. Explain to them the reason why they need additional insured status, why it's important, the role that it plays in the claim, and then definitely.
Nope, lost Jennifer a little bit there. Oh, there, you're back. We got you.
Oh, okay.
You're back. Yep, but we got that message. Yep.
Yep.
Good. Excellent. All right. Good. It is a big nut to crack, one that IMB is constantly looking at and trying to wrap our hands around. But you guys all had some good perspective on that from that. We're about at time. I have one final question, so I'm going to ask you guys to, in a sentence, answer this one. Kind of a fun one to end on, and that is, what is the best part of your job? Why do you love working in the insurance industry? Kind of wrap up everything that we just talked about the last 45 minutes. Kyle, start with you in a sentence. What is it that you love about, why do you love your job?
It's probably easiest question so far. So definitely my clients, learning how they got in the business, why they started that restaurant, why they do this. That's probably the most fun, you know, getting them to spill the beans and like, well, you know, I bought it from my old boss. I thought it'd be fun to do. I mean, one guy I met the other week was, he said, well, I always thought it'd be fun to own an arcade. I was like, okay. So, you know, he bought an arcade. So like, listen to that story and understanding like their how and why and what they do and what's important to them is my favorite part of the job.
And then you come in and protect their story, I think, is the other part of that. So you play that role. So, and that's always changing. Every day is different in the industry for sure. Jennifer, why do you love your job?
I'll make mine really simple and sweet. Building relationships.
Perfect. Dave?
For me, it's people. It's the clients, our team, and then also the fact that I have yet to find like the end of the ability to keep learning. And that is very intriguing to me, that there's always something to learn, always more you can do and grow. And those two things, the people and the ability to have it continually expand.
Here's a little secret, Dave. In this industry, there is no end to
Yeah,
that.
right.
It is always evolving and
agree.
always changing.
Yes.
And to me, that's attractive as well. It's an ever-changing industry. There's a wealth of clients out there that you can meet. And to Jennifer's point, you know, you get to serve them and just work with them. So relationships, it's what it's about, why we have a unique industry. So, well, hey guys, I appreciate your time. That's just a little bit of insight in getting to know you and your perspective on the industry. So again, my congratulations. I hope everybody now recognizes why these three were selected. An impressive group in 2022. We're proud of you guys. We appreciate what you have done. We appreciate where you're going as well. The future is bright with you three, and IMB looks forward to working with you in that regard. I again want to thank our sponsors. Without you guys, we could not do this. So our sponsors, thank you very much for your support of this program. And I want to end with three notes actually. How can you guys continue to be involved? Not you three, but as a whole, how can young agents continue to be involved with IMB? There's three ways. One, we do have a Facebook community. Just search for IAB Futures program within the Facebook community, and it's a robust group of individuals, similar to what Dave was mentioning, you know, peer-to-peer mentorship, a way that we can chat, bounce some ideas off, ask questions. So we continue to look to grow that community. Again, IAB Futures group within the Facebook community. Please join that. Second, next year, the National Legislative Conference, mark these dates, April 26th and 27th in Washington, D.C. We always are in Washington as part of the National Legislative Conference, but we are making a point to have a much more robust young agent participation in Washington, D.C. So mark the dates for now, hold those. But if you have interest in seeing the legislative process, but also networking with young agents from around the country, you'll want to hold April 26th and 27th. IMB will be hosting a large group. And then the big announcement is we are coming back with the Futures Conference, something that we had some momentum on. The pandemic has caused us to put a pause on that. We will be back in the fall of 2023 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the return of the IMB Futures Conference. It will be bigger and better than ever. There's been a lot of you guys asking about it, so we will be delivering on that. So some exciting news. Next year is going to be a big one. We will be using you three, our IA&B Young Agent Award winners, as stewards of those programs. So we look forward to that. So again, thank you. Again, my congratulations. We appreciate your participation. To all IAB members, thank you as well, and please reach out with anything that you may need. So thank you guys. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jason. Have a good one.
See ya. Yep.